Bro, I hate rappers.
And welcome to the I Hate Rappers podcast. I'm your host, Greggy Westside. Today, I got a very special guest who we messed up in her interview one time before, so she's back. M. Franklin, everyone.
Hi.
Happy to be here?
Yes.
I'm glad. I'm happy that you're here. It's not often we get you in Cleveland anymore.
I do my best.
I know you do try. Every time you're up here, we always link up, whether it's a show or just whatever. I remember. So you just moved down to Nashville.
I did. It's been a year now.
Been a year.
What?
So I'm very happy we get to do this now versus when you were living back in Cleveland, like posting it at least. I was never sent the files for her last interview, so that's why I never got posted. But it's going to be able to have you give more perspective on being a musician that's not a rapper, that's more of an artist, that's more of a singer vibe, even if it's not like, full artist, seeing, what these country artists do, R&B, jazz, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. So what's Nashville like? Just for a musician, an independent musician.
As an independent musician. So I think a lot of people associate Nashville with country music, rightfully so, like it's country music city, but at the root of it, it's music city. And a lot of people don't know. I actually just went to something at the National Museum of African American Music, like history. And I did not know that like Nashville as a city is built on Black culture music. And so it gets this huge rap now of being this country city and this rock city, but where it all started, it has totally different roots. So coming down to music city, you have everything. You've got rappers, you've got R&B, you've got jazz, you've got bluegrass, country, rock. There's even an EDM scene that's blossoming in Nashville right now. I've got some good friends that are opening up a new venue. So it's cool to see, and it's a little bit of everything, which is really nice.
Yeah, a lot of the South, which people don't really realize, was started by Black musicians.
Absolutely.
A lot of the songs that are popular by white artists, especially in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, originally created by Black artists.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing when somebody does kind of take the time to learn and go see all these things, what you're able to see. I know that there's been songs by Elvis and other like very popular songs. I can't think off the top of my head, but originally written or performed by a Black musician. And it's great to see where your city has come from, or where the city that you're in has come from, and just like the scene in general.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part about performing in Nashville, Ben? And what's the part that you hate the most?
So something that was a huge culture shock for me when I started doing music in Nashville is up in Cleveland and even in Cincinnati when I was doing music there, live bands weren't a big thing. It's like if you had a band that was super cool and you were unique for it, but it wasn't an easy thing to do. And I'd been trying for about a year and a half when I was in college to get a solid band to start playing with. Went through all of this struggle, went through a genre change, like it was a whole thing. And then I moved down to Nashville and I was like, oh my gosh, like they are everywhere, which has been my favorite thing. I've found some really great musicians to collaborate with, whether it's on the writing side or the performing side or even the recording side. Recording with a live band has been the coolest thing. We've been reworking so much of what I've already created as well as creating new stuff. And seeing a band get in there and you just have your bassist start on a line and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then the guitar player just comes in and he's like, well, what if we did this? And then the drums come in and the keys come in and the sax comes in and you're like, oh my God. Seeing that come together and being a part of that process has been my favorite part by far.
Yeah, I mean, even watching you get excited about it right here makes me excited and definitely will make some of the audience get excited because that's something you don't get, especially the past 10, 15 years within hip-hop, R&B, and just any genres of music. For the most part, you can just go and rip a YouTube beat and then get into a studio and record vocals, and you're basically there you are. And then even if you do have a live band recording, you could also perform it without. And that's something that you really couldn't do for most of music's history, or at least popular music history.
Yeah, it's definitely been a change. It's also been, I guess, my biggest thing that I kind of don't love about the city. It comes from me not being experienced and me having ignorance to the scene in general, just because of what I grew up with around Cleveland and Cincinnati. I learned the music scene to be one way. And then I guess I got to Nashville and it feels like the big leagues down there. And I get into this sense of I don't belong in this room. And it's 100% a confidence thing. I have had artists come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, how many times have you come here to this? I'm like, this is my first time. I'm nervous as hell. I don't know what's going on. So that's been like a personal thing that I've been trying to get over, is like, you do belong in this room. And that's something that I feel like a lot of artists don't feel credit for. I feel like they get wrapped up in these artists that are more on what you guys refer as like the rapper side, that are such big personalities and demand so much and have this energy about them that kind of comes with like a lackluster substance. Whereas these artists with substance, they don't have that personality. They don't have that big energy around them that draws a room. So you feel like you don't belong in that. And it's something I'm getting used to in Nashville.
Okay, so what's one thing you've hated about, like, I know you said something about performing in Nashville. So what's one thing you hate about that?
Well, as far as gigs go, I haven't done a whole lot in Nashville. You were with me for our first full live band show that I did in Nashville,
Which was amazing. It was very, very good.
It was a cool show. It was really cool. And it was the day of the show. I think we were at sound check. We had just met our drummer for the first time. Like, I'd never met this man. I'd never heard him play. This friend of mine that was playing bass was like, hey, I got this guy. He'll play for us. We met him at sound check. He played for us the first time. And we were standing up on the stage at sound check. We looked at each other. We're like, do we say screw it to the tracks? Like, do we just ditch the performance tracks that I had? And they're like, yeah, let's go full live. It was the first time I'd ever done that. Decision on the spot. And it was so cool. But outside of being able to do performances like that, the closest I've gotten to performing in Nashville the way that I do here is like jumping up for a song or two on a Broadway gig. And I don't do country or rock well. I don't have the voice for it. I don't know how those artists do it. Power fucking to you, because it takes a lot. But I haven't gotten the performance time I would like in Nashville. And it's partially a me thing. I don't give myself space in the room.
That's fair. I think one thing with country and rock is you kind of a lot of times you have to have like a very powerful voice.
For sure.
Not a recording powerful voice, but like a live powerful voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to have a good voice on top of that.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who's a little bit more quiet, it's a little bit harder to get to. That, like me, I feel like I have a powerful voice.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sing for shit though. So like I'd fall. I'd fall on my ass real quick. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, is just because you are talented and have a good voice, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do everything. And knowing what your limits are and trying to push through them to see where the best is like for you. Yeah. That's all that you can do.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is some of these artists that are performing on Broadway that I've had the pleasure of becoming friends with, they have areas in their own career that they're like, oh, I'm not very strong at writing, or I'm not very strong at whatever. And it's so awesome to find those people that are willing to bounce ideas off with you. There's this singer on Broadway. His name is Chris Cooley. Fucking wild performer. The energy he has when he performs. I hit him up. I was like, I need you to help me figure out this performance thing. And he's like, well, I need to work on writing. And I was like, let's bounce ideas. And it's hard to find some people like that in Nashville, because they get this, oh, I perform on Broadway every night. I'm a big deal. I don't need to. People like him, people like my guitar player, coolest people on Broadway. It's awesome to find those artists.
Hell yeah. So I do have a question.
Okay.
So as a female artist,
yes,
in a scene that is dominated with a lot of rappers and a lot of hip hop artists and a lot of male artists, the strength and weakness, the love, hate, what's one thing you really feel like does help by being a female artist, also very talented, don't get me wrong, but by being a female artist that you do like, and like what's one thing that's like more of a, I guess, a weakness that you hate?
So I honestly think they tie in to each other. They kind of come together. Being a female artist, a lot more people are wanting to like open the door for you in music sense. Like, they're like, oh yeah, I know a friend, or I know a so-and-so. And that first connection can be super easy as a female artist, because they're like, oh, she needs help. They give this like damsel in distress to you, and you're like, if you're giving me something, I will take it. The thing is, though, most of the time that first let me help you comes with a, well, how are you going to help me? And it's more often than not music related. And it's like, oh yeah, I want to get to know you better. And it's like, yeah, we could be friends. But the amount of times I've been like hanging out with somebody in the music industry that's like, oh yeah, like meet so-and-so, or let me get in the door here. And then all of a sudden we're out to dinner together, just conversating. And then all of a sudden I realize, oh my God, I'm on a date. And I did not know I was on a date. That part I hate. The expectation.
No, and that's one thing where I'm very happy I'm in a relationship to where like I don't have to deal with that type of stuff, and
Yeah.
like I could just have like a friendship with you, you know.
Right.
But it's just I see it happen, and it doesn't like sit the best with me, you know, because it's just like it's stupid. Like if this was a dude, one, you're not gonna try and give him the same favor, and then two, like you're also not trying to fuck him, you know?
Right.
So like, why are you doing the same? Like if you're building something with like a business relationship intended, then why are you not trying to keep it strictly business?
Right. And then it comes back to my confidence in music. It was like, did you only give me that opportunity because I'm a woman, or did you actually have belief in my art? And it sends you on this constant questioning spiral. And it's like, it comes back to me every single time. It's like, I need to step up. I need to have confidence in my own art, and I need to have that presence in a room that says, I'm here as an artist, not your person to hit on or whatever.
Yeah. Funny enough, one of the first shows we worked on together, it was only because you're a female artist.
Yep.
Because it was an all female show.
It was Battle of the Baddies.
Battle of the Baddies.
When I was trying to get people to buy tickets for that show, they're like, what is this? They're like, is this going to be like a drag show where you guys are like dancing off, or like what's the, and I was like, no.
I mean, honestly, it's just tough because like I was trying to make sure it was like all female, LGBT,
Right.
And just all inclusive and just not male dominated like most of the shows are. And
For
like,
sure.
and don't get me wrong, any promoters out there, any people going to shows, like there's nothing wrong with a male dominated show, but that's
Right.
like that's because it's like that's a lot of the scene. You know, you're playing a numbers game when you go out, and like it's just like a non, you know, just female or just female and LGBT show, you know, and it's like it's tough to kind of
Get the balance.
yeah, to even the playing field and shit, and
Yeah.
especially because like a lot, like we're talking about stuff like a lot of women don't want to get into this shit because like, oh, like you, like this dude's just gonna try and fuck you, and that's bullshit. That's bullshit, especially when you have talent or like it's something that you're very passionate about. And I feel like that's something that has been changing recently, which is great,
Right.
but you know, a lot more work to do with it. But I feel like another part of that is getting more female artists kind of involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So female rap, let me ask you about that. So female rap, I've been like kind of more in tune with that since like 2018.
Okay.
My friend got me hip to Princess Nokia, Rico Nasty, Doja Cat was coming up at the time too.
Right.
That was before she was weird, and two, before she was really singing and stuff like that.
Right.
So who are some artists of recent that have really given you inspiration? And it doesn't have to be because of their musical talent or because of any of the music involved, but just because of anything.
So coming down to Nashville and not being a country artist, I always have to kind of give a disclaimer of like what kind of music I make. And being somebody who's more on the R&B jazz side of things, every time I say that, everyone in Nashville's like, oh, so like Amy Winehouse. And I like the amount of times Amy Winehouse has been thrown at me, I started getting more into her stuff. And like I'd always listened to her when she came on, but it was never an artist of choice. But lately, like her and SZA, Kalani, and Adele, like that blend of people, watching the way they perform and the way they interact with their crowds has been a huge inspiration for me lately, because I'm trying to study up on my stage presence. I know that I'm lacking in that area.
You're really not that bad at stage presence. Like you're really not that bad at all. Obviously things can improve, but
For
that's
sure.
just like it also depends on what type of lane you're going in.
Exactly.
You're not gonna be Kehlani like because
No.
Kehlani's up on stage grinding and shit.
She's
you know?
yeah.
That's not. I know that's not what you want.
And that's why I'm trying to find this balance between like the Adele types to the Kalani types and the SZA types, and then also that Amy Winehouse kind of like rock star, almost R&B. So finding my area in the middle of that has kind of been the inspiration source lately.
What's been the biggest inspiration to your music specific, like the recording process and the type of music that you're putting out?
Honestly, as a writer, I get inspiration everywhere. I've been writing country stuff for this girl duo down in Nashville recently. I think they actually just announced like a few days ago that they were coming out as a duo. They'd been doing independent stuff, but I've been writing some country stuff for them, which has been fun, pulling inspiration from their experiences. But in general, it's just been experience, life experience, love experience, always in there. But yeah, no specific artists that I'm watching on their style of processes, but artists that I've worked with, like when I go in with a live band or when I get to talk to some of my friends that are in different bands or different music scenes. It's more personal than like big time artists.
Okay. Who was your favorite singer growing up?
Oh, that's tough. So my dad was in a country band growing up. So I grew up on country. Toby Keith's passing hit me hard. It hit the whole city hard, but
I mean, Nashville especially.
Oh my God, yeah. But I was a Taylor Swift fan when I was little. Back when she was doing Fearless.
Because she was good. Not that she's like not good now, but.
Mm-hmm. But I was a huge Carrie Underwood fan too.
Okay.
Carrie Underwood, Keith Urban. And when I was in college, first starting music, and I was still doing like poppy stuff, big into Ariana Grande. And her process and the way she layers things is super cool to me.
When did you really get into Ariana Grande? Like, are we talking like The Way with Mac Miller, or like a little bit after that?
I loved her and Mac Miller. I was obsessed with. Their whole dynamic was really cool to watch. As two artists, so passionate about their art and so passionate about each other, that was really cool to see how that played in together. But it wasn't until I think it was her Positions album. Okay. That was like the first one that she did a lot of legwork on. Like she was mixing and mastering stuff on her own album that pulled my attention, because I was like, I want to hear over the years what she's accumulated knowledge-wise, and it really inspired me to start getting more involved in that process.
Okay. So before we get out of here, what's one thing that you really want to talk about to, I guess, help other artists kind of learn from your experience?
I think the biggest thing, just tying back again, is like you belong in that room. As much as you might think, I've only been doing this for so long, I don't have a debut album out, or I haven't done that many shows, like my friend Steph that's opening on that show we have in Cincy, you belong in that room. Mm-hmm. You are an artist. What you do is passionate. What you do is needed in this world, and you need to stand up for yourself and let yourself feel like you belong. Yeah.
I mean, in addition to that, kind of doubling down on that part, what you are in that room too, make sure your voice is heard.
Speak up.
Mm-hmm.
Speak up, stand out.
If you are an artist, if you're a talented creative, if you are somebody who is there to add to it and not kind of have any self-centered motivation to it, speak up, say what you want to say. If it doesn't get used or taken, doesn't. But
absolutely,
at the end of the day, you might help somebody create a beautiful piece of art.
Absolutely.
And you might get paid off of it. So that's also a plus. Hey. Like that's one thing with me as a manager. People ask me about like music critiques and like, or if I'm in one of my artist sessions, I'm always like, you should try this. Or the biggest pet peeve of mine is when someone's rapping and they have like one extra syllable in there, and they don't realize it because they've like gone over it 100 times before getting into the studio, and I'm like, cut that down. Like as soon as they cut it down, it flows better. Like that's like one of the biggest things that I feel like you can't hear that as the artist rapping or singing or
you
whatever.
Got to be able to take a critique.
And as soon as you fix that and it goes, like, that's a writer's credit, technically. So, all right. So where can everybody find you on socials?
Frankly M, that's FRANKLYEM _ on Instagram. And then all of my stuff is linked in my bio there. You can find me on TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everything. And
soon there will be a electronic press kit up on the Westside Productions website.
Yes.
So, all right. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate you stopping by while you're up in Cleveland.
Of course.
I hate rappers, but I love artists. See you guys.